Brandon didn't sit down. He didn't even look me in the eye. He walked into the living room, tossed a manila envelope onto the coffee table, and said, "You might as well stop pretending. This marriage is over. You're a useless wife. I've already signed the papers." For a second, I thought I'd misheard him. That maybe this was some twisted joke, one of those absurd, tone-deaf stunts Brandon thought were funny. But the way he folded his arms, the smirk tugging at one corner of his mouth, the silence that followed, it was real. I didn't say anything. My fingers twitched over the laundry I was folding, his shirts still warm from the dryer. The same shirts I'd washed for years. I looked down at the papers. Divorce. No warning. No conversation. Just a legal declaration that I was now irrelevant. He kept going like he'd rehearsed this. "I'm moving in with Kelsey. She takes care of herself. She actually wants things out of life. You should have seen this coming." Kelsey. The name hit harder than the word divorce. The fitness girl. The one he accidentally followed on Instagram 8 months ago. The one who lived across town and did those meal prep reels with fake lighting and fake eyelashes. That Kelsey. He turned his back on me, walked straight into the bedroom, and came out 10 minutes later with 2 suitcases and his laptop bag. I just sat there, silent, watching, memorizing the sound of his boots on the floor. He unplugged his gaming console, took the new Nespresso I'd bought him last Christmas, and tossed my folded Peloton mat to the side without a word. "I was going to wait until the weekend," he said at the door. "But since you're already snooping through receipts, figured I'd save us both time. Honestly, you'll thank me one day. Maybe this will teach you to grow up." Then he left, just like that. I sat in that silence for a long time, not crying, not yelling, just still. It wasn't until an hour later, when I stood up and the room tilted, that I realized I'd been holding my breath. The man I had built my life around for 15 years just ended our marriage like a canceled gym membership. Cold. Convenient. I walked to the kitchen, opened the junk drawer, and pulled out the receipt I'd found earlier. The one that started all of this. Tiffany and Company. A promise ring. Not for me. God knows he hadn't promised me anything in years. I grabbed my laptop and opened our joint bank account. I don't know what I was expecting, but not this. 6 months of small withdrawals. $300 here, $500 there, each labeled innocuously home maintenance, car repairs, client dinner. But the account balance told the real story. Brandon had been bleeding our savings dry right under my nose. The Peloton he got me for Christmas? He reminded me every week how expensive it was, how I never used it. But the charge wasn't even the full price. He'd split the payments. I found the financing records under his name. We weren't rich. We drove a 2014 Camry and shopped at Kroger. A Tiffany ring? A luxury apartment? Where the hell was that money coming from? And then it hit me. Not just betrayal, not just another woman, but calculation. He'd planned this. Every late night client dinner, every 5 a.m., F45 workout, every snide comment about my leggings or my face cream. It was all part of the exit strategy. I opened the Nest app and scrolled through saved camera clips. He must have forgotten the hallway cam was synced to my phone. 2 weeks ago, while I was out visiting my sister, I watched him come home with her, laughing, holding hands, carrying takeout, in my kitchen. I should have cried then, but all I felt was clarity. He thought I'd fall apart. He had no idea who I really was. The next morning, I didn't go to work. I texted my supervisor and said I needed a mental health day, which wasn't a lie. My hand still trembled every time I touched something that used to be ours. The coffee mugs, the laundry basket, the throw blanket with the snag from our trip to Denver. It all felt foreign, like the home had been hollowed out. Instead of falling apart, I called Natalie. My sister drove over in record time, still in her pajamas, armed with a laptop, a box of bagels, and a look that meant business. She didn't ask what happened. She just said, "Tell me where he hid the money." I handed her the receipts. The Tiffany fake, the hotel bills, the Uber charges too, and from a zip code I'd never visited. She pulled up my accounts, showed me how to filter by transaction type, and we started digging. Turns out Brandon had created a secondary account 3 months ago. The withdrawals weren't random, they were methodical. Every other Thursday, like clockwork. Always just under $500, small enough to slip under a red flag. He labeled them things like AC inspection or security upgrade. I hadn't questioned it. I trusted him. I thought being married meant we were on the same team. God, I hate how naive that sounds now. By noon, Natalie had built a spreadsheet. I stared at the total number at the bottom. $14,800. Gone. From the account I'd put every one of my paychecks into. From the savings we said we were building for our someday lake house. He'd siphoned it off piece by piece to wine and dine a woman who posted gym selfies with rise and grind captions. I froze the joint credit cards. I didn't even know I could do that until Natalie pulled up a TikTok explaining the steps. Funny how social media could both destroy and rescue your life in the same breath. At 2:13 p.m., my phone buzzed. Brandon. I didn't pick up. At 2:16, another call. By 2:45, I had 6 missed calls and a text that said, "We should talk like adults." Adults? You mean the kind who lie, cheat, and drain accounts behind your back? Natalie said to keep everything. Every voicemail, every email, every petty Venmo note. "You're going to need a paper trail," she said. "Trust me." I started a folder on my desktop, Operation Wake Up Call. Inside it, I dumped screenshots, PDFs, and the Nest Cam footage. One clip showed Brandon and Kelsey in the living room, her sitting where I used to read at night. He was making her coffee in the machine I bought him. My mug, my couch, my blanket. At some point, the rage should have taken over, but it didn't. What I felt was strategy. This wasn't going to be a messy, screaming divorce. No, it was going to be clean, efficient, and unforgettable. By the 3rd day, my phone had logged 19 missed calls and 4 voicemails from Brandon. The first was angry, something about me overreacting and needing to be more mature. The second had more edge. He warned me not to mess with things I didn't understand. The third was oddly calm, like he was trying on empathy but couldn't quite make it fit. By the 4th, he sounded desperate. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I spent the morning doing something I hadn't done in years, taking control of my life without asking for permission. First, I went to the bank, opened a new checking account in my name only. The woman behind the counter was patient and kind, walked me through how to use their app, showed me how to set alerts and link it to a budgeting tool. I smiled when she finished and said, "That's not so hard." Because it wasn't, despite what Brandon always said. "It's not rocket science, Monica." He'd say it with a laugh every time I asked about the bills, or the tax returns, or why our Netflix kept logging in from cities I wasn't in. No, it's not rocket science. It's just that he never wanted me to know. When I got home, I pulled out the stack of unopened mail and started sorting. That's when I found it, an envelope addressed to him, postmarked 6 months ago, from a credit card company I didn't recognize. I opened it. A Capital One account, $3,000 limit nearly maxed out. The charges were all there. Restaurants, gas stations, a few retail stores near Kelsey's place. Planet Fitness. Planet Fitness. He'd been bragging about his $200 a month F45 membership, posting his Apple Watch stats like he was training for a marathon. But the card showed he was swiping at Planet Fitness regularly. Suddenly the luxury gym, the Lululemon obsession, the aura of self-discipline, it all cracked. He wasn't building a new life. He was building an illusion. On borrowed money. On lies. That night, I got a Facebook message. It was from Kelsey. I stared at it for a full 2 minutes before clicking. No drama, no insults. Just 5 words. "We should probably talk sometime." I left her on read. There was nothing to talk about. She knew he was married. She knew my name. She wasn't some clueless victim. And whatever she thought she'd gain by reaching out now wasn't worth my breath. The next day, I met with my divorce attorney, Erin Delgado. Found her through a local women's support group. She had kind eyes and a no-nonsense voice. I liked her instantly. I handed her the binder Natalie helped me put together. Erin flipped through the pages slowly. Bank statements, account transfers, receipts, the camera screenshots. When she looked up, she didn't speak right away. Then she said, "We need to act fast. This pattern, it's called asset dissipation. He's trying to drain you before the court can freeze anything." I nodded. I didn't need a translation. I just needed a path forward. That night, I sat in my room with a cup of tea and started a new document on my laptop. Things Brandon thought I couldn't do. So far, the list included handle money, set up autopay, track our budget, freeze credit cards, recognize financial abuse, understand taxes, fix the internet router, stand up for myself. I was about to add survive without him, but I didn't, because that part was already happening. The job wasn't glamorous. A small insurance firm in an office park off the highway, fluorescent lights, beige cubicles, and break room coffee that tasted like cardboard. But when I saw the posting online, customer service representative, $16 per hour, full-time, I applied without thinking. I needed income. I needed momentum. On my first day, I wore the only business casual outfit I had left that didn't scream school fundraiser. I packed my lunch. I took the bus because Brandon had driven off with the car we shared. The irony didn't hit me until I stepped off the elevator and saw him. Brandon, in a tailored navy suit he couldn't afford, standing 3 feet from me in the lobby, holding a leather folder and flanked by Kelsey in a cream blouse and 2 high heels for a Tuesday morning. She looked like someone who'd studied Rich Girlfriend on Pinterest. He didn't expect to see me. His jaw locked. His hand twitched. For a split second, I thought he might actually drop the folder. I didn't stop walking. I just smiled, small, tight, and walked right past him like he was a stranger asking for spare change. Kelsey blinked at me like she couldn't place my face. I stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for the 3rd floor. The doors closed. I exhaled. Later that day, my manager Matthew asked if I had experience with Excel. I did not really, but I said yes and stayed up until midnight watching YouTube tutorials on pivot tables and conditional formatting. And here's the twist Brandon never saw coming. While he was out selling overpriced tech to doctors who didn't need it, I was learning how to track every dollar he'd stolen, every restaurant bill, every Venmo transfer to KH with emojis, every hotel charge within walking distance of her gym. I organized it all, color-coded, annotated, time-stamped. A digital case file of his deceit. The next week, Erin, my attorney, called and said she wanted to schedule mediation. Brandon had agreed. Probably thought I was going to cry and beg and plead for crumbs. Instead, I showed up with 3 printed binders. 1 for me, 1 for Erin, and 1 for him. When the mediator asked us to share any financial concerns, Erin slid the folder across the table. Brandon flipped it open, still smug, until he saw what was inside. Bank statements, credit card bills, gym check-ins, camera stills, Peloton login logs with timestamps, messages he thought had disappeared. And then, the cherry on top, a screenshot from our Nest camera. Brandon and Kelsey walking through the front door. Our door. While I was away visiting Natalie. Him kissing her tossing her keys onto my kitchen counter. I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. Brandon stared at the page like it might catch fire in his hands. The mediator cleared his throat. Erin smiled faintly, and I just waited. He stammered, tried to say it was taken out of context, that I didn't understand, that maybe I'd misinterpreted some things. But the thing about evidence is, it doesn't blink. It doesn't stutter. It just sits there and tells the truth. 2 days after mediation, I got another message from Kelsey. But this time it wasn't vague. It was a wall of screenshots, text conversations with Brandon, photos of receipts, and a few Instagram DMs he must have thought were deleted. No greeting, no explanation, just the message. I thought you deserved to know who he really is. I'm done. She wasn't trying to apologize. She was detonating the bomb from the inside. In the screenshots, Brandon had promised her a car, specifically a white Jeep she'd posted about. Said they'd move into a high-rise downtown, that he was pooling some money for a down payment. I recognized that money. It was mine. It was our savings. Our future. Everything I'd believed we were building together, sold off lie by lie. He told her I was unhinged, that I couldn't handle basic life tasks, that he felt bad for leaving me, but she'll figure it out. She always does. Or she won't. Either way, I'm done playing babysitter. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I just forwarded the entire folder to Aaron, who responded within minutes. This strengthens our case significantly. Well done. Thank Kelsey. I typed, then deleted it. Meanwhile, Brandon's world was beginning to collapse on its own. First, his company discovered the expense reports, multiple dinners at mid-range restaurants listed as client outreach, hotel rooms marked as off-site meetings. They didn't make a scene. No warning, no HR meetings. They just froze his accounts and fired him via email. He lost his commission. He lost his bonuses. And more importantly, he lost his professional reputation in a city where networking is everything. A few days later, I returned a few items through our joint Amazon account. Gifts he'd purchased for Kelsey, still within the return window. Since the account was under my name, the refunds went straight back to my new card. I didn't tell him, just watched, amused, as he emailed Amazon support asking why his packages were missing. Then came the Tesla, the car he leased last year to look executive. It was parked outside Kelsey's apartment when the repo truck came. I didn't plan to witness it, but life has a sense of timing. I was in the drive-thru at Dunkin' across the street. Saw the tow guy hook the wheels, tilt the car, and pull away. Brandon came running out in gym shorts, yelling at no one in particular. I didn't film it. Didn't need to. Some things are better as memories. At home, I began reclaiming my space. I canceled every streaming account and changed the passwords. Netflix, Hulu, HBO, ESPN+. Each one triggered a notification on Brandon's phone. I watched, sip by sip, as my tea steeped and the Ring cam picked up his increasingly frantic pacing on the porch of the short-term rental he was now calling home. And then Kelsey posted a second TikTok. This one wasn't vague. It was titled, "When Your Boyfriend Turns Out to Be a Fraud." She showed the fake Tiffany ring Brandon gave her, complete with a side-by-side of the website he bought it from and a real one. The views shot up, 50K, 60K, and counting. People in the comments pieced together who he was. Someone tagged his former company. Aaron sent me a one-line email that night. "You don't need revenge when the truth goes viral." And she was right, because I wasn't out for blood. I was out of the cage. The next chapter of his downfall didn't come from me. It came from the people he thought were still on his side. Brandon's sister, Katie, ran into me at Target one afternoon. I was in the storage bin aisle, trying to reorganize my apartment and, by extension, my life. She spotted me first. I braced for awkwardness, but she walked straight over and hugged me. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. I didn't cry. I didn't even speak, just nodded. Then she said something I wasn't expecting. "You should know my parents cut him off." Apparently, after Kelsey's TikTok made its way to his mother's Facebook feed, things escalated. There was a family dinner, an argument. Brandon had been asking them for money, claiming it was for investments. In truth, he was using it to prop up the fantasy he'd been selling Kelsey. Gifts, dinners, little getaways. His father was furious, took back the spare house key, told Brandon to grow up and stop pretending he was someone he wasn't. I thanked Katie, not for the intel, but for the reminder that sometimes People do see through the facade. Eventually, that same week, I logged into our old shared cloud storage, one of the few things I still had access to. I was looking for a photo, something from years ago, maybe a memory that felt like mine again. But what I found instead was a folder labeled miscellaneous, inside dozens of screenshots, messages between Brandon and Kelsey from when they first started seeing each other, chat logs, saved images, and worst of all, plans. Actual plans. When I leave her, we'll move into the 9th Street loft. She won't see it coming. She still thinks I'm just stressed from work. I didn't get angry. I didn't cry. I saved them and sent them to Aaron. "This is making my job extremely easy," she replied. "I didn't even have to twist the knife. He'd done that all on his own." The most satisfying part came the following week, when Brandon tried to show up at my workplace. Not with threats. No, this time he wanted to talk. Man to woman, he said in the email he sent to our general inbox. Security never let him past the lobby. Apparently, the front desk recognized him from the TikTok video. One of the interns joked that he was the guy from the fake Ring post. I didn't laugh out loud, but I did save the security footage when they emailed it to me for records, just in case. Later that day, I did something petty. Beautifully, quietly petty. I changed every streaming password we'd ever shared, one by one. With each change, I received a Ring notification as Brandon tried logging into Netflix, then Hulu, then ESPN+. The last one came while I was boiling pasta, and I swear I actually giggled. That night, I slept better than I had in months. And the next morning, I woke up early, not because of anxiety, not because of panic, but because the sunlight hit my bedroom just right. I watered my plants. 2 were still alive. 1 had died, but I didn't see it as a failure. I saw it as space for something new. It's been 6 months. 6 months since Brandon threw that envelope on the table and called me useless. 6 months since he walked out the door with his overpriced clothes, his gaming console, and the last shred of respect I had for him. The divorce was finalized last week. No courtroom drama. No teary declarations. Just 2 lawyers, a board notary, and a signature that closed 15 years of my life like the last page of a book I was never meant to finish. Brandon was there, of course. Sat across from me in the same Nordstrom dress shirt he used to brag about, except now it was wrinkled at the collar and a little too tight. His skin looked dull, his eyes tired. The man who once controlled every inch of our life now looked like he hadn't slept properly in weeks. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just signed my name and walked out with my head high. He didn't follow. Later that day, I stopped at the grocery store to pick up a few things: rice, pasta, some apples. Nothing fancy. As I walked down the frozen foods aisle, I ran into someone I didn't expect, his mom. She froze when she saw me, a box of lean cuisines in her hand. Then she walked over slowly, like she wasn't sure if I'd slap her or hug her. I didn't do either. We just talked. She told me they'd refused to loan Brandon any more money, that he needed to hit bottom before he could learn anything. Then she looked at my cart, filled with practical, quiet things, and said, "You always were the one who kept him grounded." And then she helped me pick out 2 throw pillows on clearance for my little apartment. That apartment has become my sanctuary. I painted the walls soft green, bought a rug I actually liked, hung photos of places I've never been but hope to see. I've kept the plants alive. Well, most of them. I cook now. Real food. HelloFresh and YouTube have become my lifelines. I learned to do basic repairs, unclog a drain, change the air filter, and even set up my own Wi-Fi. Turns out I'm not the helpless idiot Brandon made me believe I was. Go figure. I still work at the insurance office. Got a small raise, a $5 bump. It's not life-changing, but it felt like a victory. Matthew, my manager, still eats lunch with me sometimes. We don't talk about exes. We talk about weekend plans, terrible TV shows, and whether we'd survive in a zombie apocalypse. He makes me laugh. I don't know what that means yet, but it feels good. Brandon still tries to contact me, always through new Instagram accounts, usually late at night. Messages like, "You'll regret this," or "We were meant to be." I just block and move on. Last week, while cleaning out my old files, I found the wedding photos. The ones I swore I'd burned months ago. I looked at that girl in white, standing beside the man who would eventually dismantle her life piece by piece. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel anger. I felt compassion. Not for him. For her. Because she didn't know. She gave everything she had. And now she's gone. In her place is someone who walks taller, speaks clearer, and no longer waits for permission to live. The last time I saw Brandon in person was 2 weeks ago, of all places at Planet Fitness. Yes, the same budget gym he used to mock. The one I go to now on Saturday mornings because it's affordable and I actually like the routine. I was walking through the parking lot with my headphones in when I saw him getting out of a beat-up Honda, one of those older Civics with a missing hubcap and a bumper sticker half peeled off. It took me a moment to register it was him. He looked smaller. He glanced up, recognized me, and quickly looked away. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. He was no longer the man in the $90 polo shirt who called me useless. Now he was just another guy at a strip mall gym, paying off debt he couldn't hide behind a watch face or cologne. Later that week, I was at Dunkin', same one as before, grabbing my usual iced coffee before work. As I waited for my order, I heard 2 guys at the table behind me laughing. One of them said, "Remember the guy who faked client dinners? The one who got kicked out of that medical sales job." Then I heard it again. His name, Brandon Carter. Turns out, word travels in small cities, especially when it's layered with scandal and TikTok virality. His name had made the rounds, not in headlines but in whispers, the kind of reputation you don't recover from. He tried to apply back to his old job twice, showed up in the lobby once. No one even bothered calling security. They just let him stand there until he walked out. He still tries to message me from random Instagram accounts. I block each one without reading. The names change: B4 Real, Fresh Start 79, Real Brandon TX, but the desperation doesn't. One day, while organizing old emails, I found a file in our shared Google Drive, a document titled Passwords. He'd kept all of them, banking, streaming, email, on one single file. I didn't do anything with it. I just forwarded it to Katie, his sister. She replied with a single emoji. That was enough. There's no dramatic revenge post coming. No Instagram story exposing every detail. No angry message left on his voicemail. Because he's already destroyed his own legacy. Me, I'm fine. I'm still in that modest studio apartment, still getting by on iced coffee and one-pan dinners. I've got a tiny herb garden on my balcony now. I painted the planter boxes myself. I don't need anyone to fix the sink or tell me which detergent to use or whether the thermostat is set too high. I know who pays the bills. I know how to manage a budget. I know how to set up Wi-Fi and dispute a bank charge and format a spreadsheet. I know how to be alone without being lonely. And that's the part no one ever warned me about. That when you walk through the fire, you don't just come out stronger. You come out whole. Yesterday, I went to deposit my paycheck in person. I like doing that. It feels tangible, like proof. The same teller who helped me open the account 6 months ago was there. She smiled at me and said, "You look happier." And I didn't hesitate. I smiled back. I am.